Here we go. There's the ball. And look, he's going to pick it up. Fire. Yeah. Manning stays on his feet. It is caught by Tyree. 1 for 3 on the way. Oh! No! Blocked by James. Pass is intercepted. Drives down. That's broken down for the championship. We will see you tomorrow night. This is for the win. Got it. Back at the wall. Target. 5 step back. 3 for the
This is Chris Canary of the Indiana Pacers on Fox Sports Indiana, and you're listening to SmallTown SportsTalk.
Hello and welcome to SmallTown SportsTalk. I'm Andrew Willett. Again, very excited for another special episode, this time of SmallTown SportsTalk, brought to you by Endeavor Communications. It's the Indiana Pacers, and to do that, I have with me today Tony East, a beat writer and writing for the West Indianapolis Community News and Forbes Sports, and podcasting on the Locked On Pacers podcast. Tony East. Tony, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm looking at Andrew right now, everybody. He's got this fancy black background. I feel like I'm not worthy to be here. I don't even have my camera on. I haven't showered today. This is all out of whack, but it feels great. I'm glad to be here, man. How you doing?
No way. I'm sure you're looking great behind the black screen. I'm doing so great. And, well, except, this is a Pacers podcast this time. Tony, I'm a huge Celtics fan, so after the game last night, I'm okay.
Yeah, the Lakers
I'm
Celtics is Kemba. I thought he had it, man. That's his shot. The step backs from mid range. I thought he was gonna hit that.
Good look. Probably could have taken a timeout, but that. You're probably not gonna get a better look than that one that Kemba got right there. So anyway, let's get right into this Pacers season. How's it been for you? Obviously, we had the bubble. We finished up the season last year like that. Getting back into the swing of things, but no fans. How has your job been different as a Pacers reporter?
Yeah, the Zoom era is very interesting. To me, it's not so different. I don't want to say it's the same because it's clearly different, but the biggest difference for what I do is when we are able to be a foot away from guys in the locker room, when the beat writers are asking questions, usually we'll ask 3 in a row, right? We'll ask one and then we'll follow up on that and then kind of an adjacent question, and you'll get a lot from that. Whereas now it's all hand raising and calling on people, right? So you're only going one at a time. So it's kind of harder to get deeper into answers from players specifically. And then at games, we're a little farther from the court. So it's a little bit harder to notice some of the stuff that you're able to notice in the past. But mostly, the game watching experience is similar. It's not that much farther away. And you're still, the PR department for the Pacers is amazing. They make it very easy to still have access to guys, ask the questions you need, get the stories you want to get. So it's just different for sure, and you get a little bit more surface level answers from guys. But I still enjoy the Zoom era a little bit. It's nice to be able to do it in whatever setting you're in, or if I'm at work for my non-basketball job, I just walk out to my car on my phone and I'm interviewing Karis LeVert all of a sudden. You know what I mean? It's just crazy stuff like that. So it's got some pros and cons that I like, and it's definitely been different. But I'm looking forward to full arenas again and locker room access and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, how has the season been for the Pacers with no fans? And also, I assume you've been at the games. How is that weird, that arena?
So they just about a week ago, a little less than a week, at Sunday, a week ago, started letting in, I think, 1,000 general admission people. I think tonight they play the 76ers, will be their third game with GA, maybe fourth. So before that, they had no public sales. It was just family of Pacers employees and players. So there were 50 people there, but it was very interesting because people don't really know this. A lot of the noises you hear on the broadcast of the fake fans and stuff is actually in the arena. It's not Fox Sports is pumping that into the broadcast. Yeah, it's in the arena. So it's still pretty loud in there from all that noise and stuff like that. But they have the mascot doing his thing, and they do a lot of the in arena stuff still. So it feels kind of authentic when you're there, despite that there's no actual people. And then recently, and then recently the season ticket people came back, and like I just said, the GA tickets have gone up, so it feels a little more authentic now. But at first it was just kind of eerie. It's man, there's only 50 people watching this basketball game in the stadium. It was kind of creepy, but once you got used to it, it all felt a little normal. And now there's clapping and cheering and people boo when there's a bad foul call and all that. So it's feeling a little more genuine, but seeing just a massive building filled with no people is the most interesting part, honestly.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, I know that had to be eerie, but you're right. They are admitting more fans now. And how do you think they're going to go about that? Are they going to have more fans in the building moving forward, or what do you think?
They most recently, it's kind of strange because COVID's still not getting any better. And, I'm not really pro adding more fans. They just announced they're adding more to the balcony, which I thought was kind of weird, especially given, the state of the state, the country, stuff like that.
Yeah,
Uh, I understand they need to make money and keep people employed. Like, it's a very tough, delicate balance. And to be fair, I will give the Pacers a lot of credit. It's very safe in the stadium. You're never close to anyone you're not trying to be close to or with. Everyone who's sitting in this crowd is super far apart. I'm sure they've done all their research. The NBA has literally millions of dollars to put into safety research. I trust all that. It's just like a kind of an optics thing for me where, like Sekou Smith, the famous NBA reporter, passed away like a week ago, and the Pacers had back-to-back tweets. Like one was like, "We're welcoming fans into the balcony," and then that, I think
I just
Zach
noticed
Harper,
that.
sent that screenshot out. So a little weird on the optics part. Like I get it. I get it. I get why they're doing it. And I'm glad that people can come watch the team. And if it's safe and if it's safe for people who are already vaccinated, like go do it. Yeah, that's sure. But it's just kind of weird. But for me personally, the media area is very safe and I'm very far away from people. So I'm still choosing to go and I'm able to. But if you're not, if you're not able to and you're listening, please don't go is my advice. But yeah, it's certainly an interesting balance, the league. And this isn't just a Pacers problem, right? Every team has to deal with how they sort out the balance of money and fans and safety and all that. So I guess that wasn't a direct criticism of the Pacers, but more so just how the league has to handle it.
Well, it's definitely an interesting situation, but
It
hey,
is.
more people watching the team. The team this season, let's get right into that now. First, I want to start out though with the offseason. We not a whole lot of moves. You made the trade to drop TJ Leaf's contract. Well, first and foremost, you fired your head coach and hired the Raptors assistant Nate Bjorkgren, excuse me. And so, I mean, yeah, that move, but really not a whole lot going on in the Pacers offseason. Pretty typical, I think, for what fans could expect of the Pacers. What did you think of their offseason coming into the season, and how did it turn out?
Yeah, their paths were but there were basically only two paths I kind of thought they would take, given the reporting kind of leading up to it. One was the Gordon Hayward path. I'm sure you Celtics fan were familiar with how that shook out and what that was. So that was one option, was try to get the improvement that way. And then I think that was actually kind of what they were pursuing at first. But they also knew that as soon as that was unavailable, okay, we're rolling it back. We have no cap space. We're kind of close to the tax already. We were really good last year. We just had some injuries in the playoffs. We really like our coaching change. Like, let's just keep the same guys. It's easy with our restrictions. So that's what they did. And that kind of felt like what was going to happen to me. Sampson gave them good minutes. They brought him back on the minimum. Justin Holiday really likes it here, gave them great minutes. They brought him back on a good deal. All that made sense. There wasn't really a lot they could do outside of trades. And once the Hayward thing didn't materialize, there was nobody available that made sense for the stuff they were willing to give up. So yeah, like you said, running it back kind of made sense. And it's kind of how they operate in general in the past. So the coaching change and keeping that continuity is what they were banking on, making them good and keeping them relevant in their top. I think they're third in the East technically right now, but like 2 through 4 separated by like half a game.
I have the standings pulled up here. Yeah, I think you're right. Tied for third.
Yeah, so if they lose tonight, they're fifth now. Whatever. It's all a mess from 2 to 5, but it's kind of working. It's the bet they wanted. They avoid the play-in, maybe get a top 3 seed, so you're not playing one of these other talented teams in the first round. So far the bet's paying off. We'll see as all these teams stabilize, but COVID makes stability really hard for a lot of teams. So the fact that they've avoided that's been a big factor in their success so far. But I think that their offseason was pretty reasonable given their constraints, and they're doing a good job with the team they have so far.
Absolutely. I saw a lot of Pacers fans really thinking they needed to make some moves. Fans are always going to want some moves to happen, of course, but a lot of people I saw like maybe thinking that could mean the Pacers could go down this season, maybe not be as high as they have been. And here they are, still one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. So really, how important has that continuity been? And tell me, how has Nate Bjorkgren done as the head coach?
Yeah, there were a lot of people who had them 7 or 8 seed that, they won 50 something games last year. Like that didn't make any sense to me, but whatever. Continuity is, this is the time when it shows up, is the first 20 games or so, when every other team that doesn't have it, they make silly mistakes and they're feeling each other out and stuff like that. And the Pacers can beat, the Celtics and the Warriors and the Blazers and all these good teams. They're able to, the Raptors, and I guess the Raptors haven't been that good this year, but they're able to beat these good teams that had more turnover. They have the Sixers tonight. I think that's the best team they'll have played this season. But that's where it's going to stand out. And even as continuity is kind of weird, because a lot of it is you understand the tendencies of the guys you play with from last year, but they changed coaches and their scheme is completely different and a lot of their sets are different. So how much of that familiarity actually matters when stuff is still different? But, I think it was Brogdon. I can't remember. I don't want to speak for anybody. One player mentioned that continuity has been helping them recently a lot. Like when their set dies, they just know exactly like, oh, Sabonis screens for this guy and someone's open over here, blah, blah, blah. That they understand all that part well. So it's definitely helping them. But I think the new coaching change kind of lessened the impact that it would normally have. But the coaching change has been a positive. So in general, those two things meshed together have the impact that continuity would have had anyway. So I think bringing back the same roster has been good for them. And eventually that will wear off. Like I said, eventually all the other teams will catch up and be familiar with each other. But it's been helpful for them early in the season as they transition coaches.
Yeah, they absolutely got out to a hot start. The Pacers did. And Bjorkgren, like you've said, been a positive on the offensive side of the ball and really haven't seen a whole lot of downfall defensively. And in large part, that has to be due to Miles Turner, who, and we talked about the continuity, but obviously a huge blockbuster trade. We'll get into that, and missing a few guys due to health reasons. So how has really Miles Turner been this season, and why has he been so much better, or at least more in the spotlight to national NBA fans?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think every team, including the Celtics, ironically, are probably asking that question because he was on the trading block this summer. And I think it was Zach Lowe of ESPN reported, the Celtics kind of like surveyed his value around the league and they weren't that impressed. And that's part of why they didn't want him. So now he's in the spotlight because he's been really good instead of being in the spotlight because he's not in a deal. And I think that some of the discourse around him kind of motivated him this summer. And he's talked about how Defensive Player of the Year is his goal, and that's motivating him. And tonight's his first massive test with Embiid, if Embiid plays. I think he's questionable right now. So the first thing that's helped him a lot is their new defensive scheme. They used to, with Dan Burke as their defensive coordinator, basically under Nate McMillan, have him in drop coverage all the time. And sometimes he wouldn't really be as engaged with the ball. He was more, just staying around and being ready for pick and roll coverage. And then, he was still good at that. Like he was a really good defender in years past, but he wasn't as around the ball as often. This year, Nate Bjorkgren's just like ball pressure, disrupt the ball, go to the ball. And so guys get beat a lot because they're running and being frantic. And so Miles Turner's role is more this year, like cover up those errors, slide around the paint, cut off drives, cut off guys who get beat, still protect the paint. So he's just involved in a lot more around the ball, which has made his block numbers go up a ton. And, he's still the same guy at causing shots to be challenging. So because he's defending more shots at the rim, his defensive impact numbers are going up, and all that combined just show he's really shown his value defensively in the scheme. And on offense, Bjorkgren's got him energized and confident. He's making decisions right away, moving the ball, shooting the ball, whatever. There's no thinking. He's just really playing. He's really confident. And even if the offense doesn't stick, and I think he scored over 20 points in 4 of his last 5 games, that might be wrong, but something like that. Even if the offense doesn't stick at that high of a level, his defense has been so good. He's probably been one of the best 3 defensive players in basketball, that he's going to be a huge guy for the Pacers the rest of the season. And I give Bjorkgren a lot of credit for not only having a defensive system that's good, but one that really caters to the players he has.
Absolutely. And not only defensively for Miles Turner, but you've seen a lot of improvement from several players. I want to ask, who has been the most improved player for the Pacers this season?
Wow, that's a good question. You could argue Turner because of the scheme fitting him really well. Sabonis looks a little better than last year. Brogdon looks fantastic again. Brogdon's an interesting one because if you look at it, just comparing his stats from last season to this season, he looks a lot better. But really early last season, he was about this good, maybe a little lower, and then he got hurt and kind of trailed off. Man, the most improved Pacer this year. I'm really wrapping my head around this. Maybe Doug McDermott.
That's one I'm going to ask you about him.
I just wrote about him, so I've got some stats fresh in my head. But, Bjorkgren and him have a good relationship. He's driving a ton. Like, his drives per game, his first 2 years with the Pacers were like hovering right around 2. This year he's at like 4.5, right? So basically doubling those numbers. And that's a lot because Bjorkgren trusts him to attack and come off these screens, and he's finishing all these layups. So he's been really energized offensively, but defensively he's kind of overmatched in this system. And, it's hard to say because Warren hasn't played at all. Karras hasn't played at all. Jeremy Lamb looks really good. He could be one that gets most improvement. I think right now I'd pick Brogdon because he's stretching his really high impact out longer than he did last year. The longer this maintains, the easier it is going to be to pick him. But McDermott definitely is in the top 2 in this answer. So Brogdon, McDermott are my top 2. But honestly, Turner, everybody looks a little bit better at certain things. The only guy who's been probably worse is Aaron Holiday. I think everybody else has been as good or better than last year.
Well, the holidays, I'm going to ask you about all of these guys because the Pacers really have a lot of the quote I've been told, they don't necessarily have an A guy, but they have a ton of B guys.
Yes.
Just a really quality basketball team all around. So let's start with Malcolm Brogdon. We just hit Miles Turner. Malcolm Brogdon, can he be an all-star this season? Or I've even heard all-NBA maybe.
Wow. All-NBA is probably tough. There's a lot of good guards in the NBA. He could. He's killing it this year. I did my own all-star rankings as of right now. Obviously they'll evolve in the next month or whatever till the all-star break actually happens. And it's probably like the last spot in the East All-Stars. It's either Brogdon or Sabonis. I think Brogdon's been better.
Hard to pick between the two.
Yeah, you know what? I understand people who think Sabonis has been better. And from a voting perspective, if I'm like zooming out and not being a Pacers beat writer, the guy who got it last year is going to get more votes, right? Just because of reputation. So absolutely. I think Sabonis is probably more likely, but I think Brogdon's more deserving. So whatever, we're splitting hairs there, but yeah, Brogdon's been ridiculous, hitting pull-up threes and running the offense and being clutch and setting up teammates more. I think he's averaging more assists than last year too, which it's just crazy. I mean, he looks so much better. It makes no sense. I don't really notice like any particular shot that I'm like, wow, he didn't have that last year, but he's just making way more of them and looks a lot better captaining the offense. So he's been just fantastic this year. And his defense being more aggressive instead of, the passive, keep guys out of the middle, Nate McMillan style has been better for him. So he just looks really good this year.
Absolutely. Brogdon must be that system helping him out. Another guy really early in the season, I definitely noticed this, but injuries have kind of gotten in the way, is Sabonis, the guy that you just said could be challenging Brogdon for an all-star spot. Sabonis, I heard him as like MVP. Like I'm pretty sure Bleacher Report tweeted something out where he was like an honorable mention or something like that. But Sabonis, why has he been so much better? How has he improved this season?
The ball is in his hands all the time. I think he's first in the league. Okay, so some of it's that he plays so much, like 40 minutes a game. But
oh, really? I didn't even know that.
I think he leads the league in total touches, right? He has the ball all the time. And that's because he only has one game. He played 10 minutes in one game because he got hurt in that game. But that's really dragging down his minutes per game. I think he's been over 34 in every other game he's played. So he's just playing a ton. But yeah, he has the ball so much, and that's because he's good every time he's got it. He can post up. He can pass to other guys. He sets awesome screens. He's good at handoffs. So he makes everything easier for everybody. Why not have him be the hub? And so early in the season when he was getting the MVP buzz, right, he had 32, 22, 19, 14, and 25 points in their first 5 games. And he paired that. He's had a double-double every game he didn't get injured in, right? Like that alone is ridiculous. And he's had 2 triple-doubles. He's passing well. Like they can trust him with the ball in his hands, and he's really good at making plays. And that passing big style is really hard to defend. And like when he has young centers matched up on him, it just cracks me up because the way basketball is played now, like there's no post-ups anymore. So he'll post up like Mitch Robinson. Mitch Robinson's an amazing defender, but Mitch Robinson never defends post-ups. So he has no idea how to stop it, right? Like that kind of stuff just cracks me up. So he just has such a unique skill set, and he's good at so many things that he's just so hard to stop, and he's really good. He's probably the best offensive. No, not even probably. He is the best offensive player on this team, and that gets him a lot of credit and gives him a good shot, like I just described, at being an all-star again.
Yeah, I've heard like a discount version of Nikola Jokic, the Eastern Conference version. Getting some more freedom in the Bjorkgren offense has got to be good for him. Another player or two I want to touch on here. We'll start, go ahead and again with Doug McDermott. I've heard he's been really a lot better, like more mobile, better athlete this season. Do you know what work he put in the offseason to get to this point?
And whoever's telling you info about the Pacers, they're just spot on every step of the way. Yeah. So I got all the anecdotes here because, again, I just wrote about him. But he was in Phoenix in the offseason, and Bjorkgren came and visited him because right after the Pacers hired Bjorkgren, he just traveled around the U.S. and met with all these guys, right? He met with Vic Oladipo in Miami, which that's not important anymore now. But anyway, he met with Miles Turner in California and Brogdon in Atlanta and Sabonis in L.A. and McDermott was in Phoenix. I think there were more, but I know the locations of all the guys I just said. So he's in Phoenix with McDermott, and McDermott finishes this workout, and he's like, shoot from farther away. And then he's like, you come from the left every time, come from the right. All this stuff that McDermott's like, what? Like, you want me to work on more offensive stuff? Like, obviously his defense has been the problem in the past. So yeah, they're just like letting him do whatever. He's driving all the time, and guys are really overplaying him because he finished 5th in the league in 3-point percentage last year. So he just up fake, put it on the floor, bucket, and back cutting guys. And McConnell can find him anywhere. Sabonis can find him anywhere. And because he's so good at threes, like it's easy for guys to just throw him the ball in the perimeter. The fact that he's driving and handling the ball so well just has made him so hard to guard this year. It's absolutely crazy how much a 3-point threat can help other people. And he's just, they're really good at, Bjorkgren's really good at using McDermott in a way that just lets him be good and helps other guys be good. And in tandem, it's just made McDermott awesome. Like he started games this year because of injuries, but still like that, he's been good with that group too. Just everything about his game has been better. And yeah, he does look more athletic. The Hornets announcers, when they played the Hornets a few nights ago, were just like, what is happening? Like Doug McDermott had 3 dunks in one game, and they were like, what is happening? Doug McDermott, what? Like, he's just been that guy this year. He's been super good.
Good for Doug McBuckets. Happy for him. One more before we touch on the huge trade, the Holiday brothers. You said Aaron's not doing as well this season, but I know Justin has been pretty good.
Yeah, Justin, I can't believe they got him for as cheap as they did this offseason. I kind of get why, actually, but he's 40% from 3 again, and that was the big thing for me was like his defense is good, so he's probably worth the deal he got anyway. But if he can still be a 40% shooter after being one last year, his contract's a steal, and he has been. He's taking 5 a game. He's hitting 40% of them. That makes him valuable on offense, especially because I think it's still, so he's still at 64% from 2-point range this year. So he, like McDermott's been good at, they're running me off the line, shot fake, dribble, 15-footer. He makes it so often this year. So he looks really good. He started over half the games again because of injuries, but has fit in fantastic with that starting 5. Aaron, on the other hand, I can't really explain it because a lot of people thought he would really benefit from a Bjorkgren system of a lot of aggression and drives and finishes at the rim, but he's shooting 35% on the year. And, a lot of his shooting efficiency was propped up by good 3-point shooting in the past. He's not hitting his threes this year. They tried to start him a few times, and because he only got about 5 shots with that starting 5 when he was the 5th option, he didn't fit. Now with the bench, he's not making anything. He's lost a touch passing that he's had in seasons past, and he's combining that with worse finishing at the rim than he's ever had. I think he's at like 50% at the basket, which is weird. He was at 60% his rookie year. So wow, things just aren't clicking for him. I'm not sure what it is. For a while, I defended keeping him in the starting 5 because I just thought, we've seen him be a good scorer and shooter before. Like the shot will come around eventually, and then this will be fine. Like this is a good role for him. But it's been 20 games and the shot hasn't come around. So it's really hard to defend him playing more than he is now. So I get why he has got a long leash. He's been the best draft pick of the last 5 years for the Pacers, which is kind of alarming. But he just something about the system and they want to go to the rim and finish at the rim all the time, and which is fine for most guys. But he's really struggled with that, and he hasn't been the passer he was in seasons past. So he just hasn't been as good as he has in the past, and it's kind of strange, and his development's kind of important. So they're gonna keep trying to get him out there and get him going, but so far it has not been pretty.
Sure, yeah. And so really going from there, we gotta break into this Oladipo trade. Jonah, do you know what is ridiculously fast?
What's that, Andrew?
Endeavor Communications internet speeds.
That's right. In Indiana, basketball is everything. And if you're anything like Andrew and I, you are always streaming basketball, your favorite sports, or just your favorite shows. And hey, you're always going to need Wi-Fi.
Ridiculously fast.
Endeavor Communications provides Wi-Fi perfect for watching the big game, streaming your favorite shows, working, studying, and gaming all at the same time.
Not only is Endeavor fast, but when you go with Endeavor, you support the whole community.
Endeavor Communications is proud to serve and support our local community. From homes, education, businesses, Endeavor will keep you ahead of the game.
You can find out more and see for yourself at weendeavor.com. That's weendeavor.com. And tell them SmallTown Sports Talk sent you. But the Harden trade to the Nets and then the Pacers and the Cavaliers both hopping in there. And really, I think those were the two teams that probably won the trade for the most part. The Cavaliers got a great amount. And then moving on from Victor Oladipo, someone who was the face of the franchise, what has that transition been like?
I it's kind of weird how, like, right after it happened, there was a lot of talk about it because it was the story, right? They traded a franchise icon, but they haven't really missed a beat. And I know they all liked Oladipo, the player. He was very popular in the locker room. Nate Bjorkgren said he was not a distraction this year, which can be the case when stars are potentially on the way out. They've had a good relationship this season, but I think everybody sort of knew or maybe had a hunch that he wouldn't be on the team next year and that the team could trade him as a result of that. So really hasn't had any ripples on the team, but I think it made all the sense in the world. They thought he wasn't going to be here next year. I thought that if they knew that, they would trade him before the trade deadline. So was I surprised it happened after 10 games? Yeah, but trading a franchise icon is always hard. But given that they knew he might not be back, and reporting from former Suns GM Ryan McDonough, of all people, that he was declined a contract extension, they have to trade that guy. So that's why they did it. And they liked Karis LeVert. They apparently had engaged the Nets on him before, or asked the Nets about him before, and they heard or learned that they couldn't get Karis straight up from the Nets. But they learned that in this 3-team trade, they could get him via the Rockets.
Yeah.
Maybe similar value that they were going for originally. So they, were happy to jump in and make all these pieces swap around. And obviously, it completely changes when you discover a guy has cancer in the middle of a trade and all the optics. Who cares about what happened before and what value you have on the guy? You might have saved his life, but they got the guy they wanted, and they moved on from a guy that probably wasn't going to be on the team, and they acquired some other assets too in that deal. So I agree with you that the Cavs, who traded a crappy first-round pick for Taurean Prince and Jared Allen, made out like bandits in that deal.
Absolutely.
That was incredible. But two, I think if it's really true that the Pacers do like LeVert and they tried to get him from the Nets and couldn't before, but they were able to because of this whole big deal, I think they did a good job to step in and do that. And I think Karis is pretty good. He'll help them when he's ready to go. I don't know when that's going to be for sure, so I'm not going to speak on that. But I think it was a good deal value-wise for them.
Okay, well, we will still get into I don't necessarily have to ask you about when Karis LeVert is coming back, but we'll get into Karis LeVert and the health of this Pacers team, TJ Warren, and more. But I have to ask one more question about Oladipo. Houston's they've been pretty hot the last, I believe, 5-game win streak after last night. Oladipo came out in a post-game interview and said people are quitting on him, much to the dismay of Pacers media and indie sports media. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know what? I did comment on that at the time. This actually is the first time I'm talking about this in a media setting. I don't care is my first answer, but he's allowed to think whatever he wants. I don't really have a problem with that. I get it. He got traded. You know what I mean? Any player probably thinks that the franchise that trades him quits on him, even if they didn't and they had all the reason not to. I get him feeling that way, and there's some negative reinforcement involved. That said, I don't think the Pacers quit on him. They clearly were. If McDonough's reporting is true, which I think I believe it to be true, then they tried to keep him. They tried to not quit on him and grow with him even farther into the future. And so I don't view that as quitting on him. So I get why fans are really upset about that comment, particularly a guy didn't want to play for your team and now he's saying the opposite thing is true, right? If I'm a fan, I'm screw you, dude. Come on, don't do that. But, I, from the side of, I really liked covering Victor and I really liked speaking with him, and I totally understand why he feels that way, even if it probably is a little facetious. I get it. And I don't really have a problem with the whole situation. Although again, I don't fault fans for thinking the way they did, right? That would be a total shot to the heart if you were what do you mean my team quit on you? You quit on us. So I totally get why it became a big kerfuffle and things like that. But I personally didn't have a problem with him saying that.
Now about the return from that trade, losing Oladipo, you get Karis LeVert back. How important how great of a piece is Karis LeVert to this Pacers team moving forward?
I like Karras a lot. He's really good. He's had some really high scoring games, right? I think he had a 50-point game last year, a 40-point game this year. Clearly
It was
very
against
talented.
Boston too.
It was against Boston, the
Oh,
40-pointer or the 50-pointer?
The 50.
Of course it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So he's clearly talented as a scorer. The Nets have talked a lot about his playmaking improving this year. A lot of that's just he's had the ball in his hands more because prior to the trade, Kyrie missed time, Kevin Durant missed time. He had the ball a lot. But anyway, he can do a lot of stuff Oladipo did, albeit probably not quite at Vic's level. He's pretty close, though. So I think they like that about him. They can keep him around for more years and develop him. He's only in his 5th year. That's the year that Depot took off for the Pacers. So he's definitely good and can help them. And I think he's got his bag of tricks is just a little different than Depot's. He's not quite the shooter, but he's a little bit better of being crafty in the lane. Like Vic was a really good driver his first year with the Pacers when he was all NBA, but that really fell off recently. So Vic was still good this year, but he could basically only get to the rim and finish. He didn't really have a pull-up game or a floater game. Karras is amazing at the pull-up and floater game. So looking forward to that. And I think he's a little bit better of a playmaker than Oladipo right now. That's close. That's really close. Oladipo is really good, and he definitely took steps forward this year after a really bad season last year. But I think Karras fits well in a similar role and can score a lot, can set up Sabonis. If he can run the pick and roll of Sabonis, he'll just be a great fit by default. But just everything else, I think, is icing on the cake, and he's a pretty good defender. Not, again, 2017-18 Vic was amazing. Karras will never reach that level, but the level Vic was at now, I think Karras is very close to, and the team was rolling early this season and sometimes even with Vic last year. So I think he fits pretty well. They don't, it's pretty seamless there. And I think they like that they can develop him. He's still mostly young. I think he's 26. Yeah. So, it's a good fit for them and a good fit for their timeline of all the other guys they have on the team. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he can do after surgery and coming back and playing.
Yeah, the health of the Pacers. Moving forward, but a question for my co-host. He really wanted to know what you thought. Is the team better with Caris LeVert or Victor Oladipo in the spot this season, assuming LeVert can come back?
This season, see, Vic was good this year. It's very close. And I think he's been killing it for the Rockets, statistically. I don't want to.
He had 25 that night of the interview, so.
Yeah, he had 32, 22 on 22 shots, 13 on 16 shots, right? So that's kind of what he was with the Pacers, some really good games and some really rough ones. And then 20, 25, and 20 since then. But he's taking a lot of shots. He's definitely been the lead ball handler for the Rockets. When John Wall came back, that last game, he had 20 on 14. I think that's probably where he'll end up more often than not. But I think Vic probably be a little bit better this season than LeVert. Not a lot. It's very small smidge better this year, mostly because of his defense. I think they're pretty similar offensively. Depot's a little better scorer. Karras is a tiny bit better passer. But Vic's a little bit better defender. So I'll probably give the edge to Oladipo, but that's a pretty close one, I think, right now. But, Vic's got a chance to rehab his body and continue to get better. And LeVert will have the same opportunity, honestly. But I think Victor's got a little more room to grow upward than Karras this season. Now, in future 2 seasons, who knows? Vic will be 30 in the middle of next season. So then it'll be a little closer. But I think probably the rest of this year, I think Depot will have higher skill level. And would have been better for the Pacers, but that's not why they traded him.
Sure, yeah. I had to look forward. But now you have Caris LeVert. He's had some health issues, just like Oladipo. The trade, pretty amazing that like a lot of people have said, it could have saved his life right there. So won't ask you again when LeVert can come back. But now TJ Warren, what is his time frame look like, and how's he doing?
So to go to LeVert for a second, Kevin Pritchard did say before it was kind of announced that it was cancer and that they were going to remove the tumor from his kidney, that he said he's optimistic, a guy in general. So this could be too optimistic. He said maybe 6 to 8 weeks he picks up a basketball. Not that he's playing in games, but that he's maybe on the road to playing in games at that point. So if I had to estimate LeVert, maybe mid-April or something. But that's not a timeline. That's just me guessing based off of what Kevin Pritchard said on the radio, not even to reporters. TJ Warren, great question. I've asked many times about TJ Warren's timeline, and they do not like to release one. I don't really know why. I think that means he's probably out for a long time. He's in Indy, and a team has a rehab plan for him. Nate Bjorkgren, every time he's asked, says something to the effect of we have a plan for him, and he's following it, and it's a diet plan and a rehab plan and blah, blah, blah. I'm okay, awesome. When? How long is it? I can't really answer that, but yeah, he had foot surgery. They have I don't know if it's necessarily like super intense or anything, but apparently it's pretty rigid if they're talking about it being dietary and, muscle and bone or whatever. But apparently he's got a pretty rigid rehab plan and he's on it now. And, he talks often with Bjorkgren. I don't have an official, expect him back at this timeline, but injuries are finicky. They can take forever, right? Like Bull had the same fracture in college and he missed basically the whole Oregon season. So it could be a long time. I'm not really preparing to see him before maybe April or May. So we'll see, but I that's just a guess. I really have no idea with him.
Now moving forward, we're just going to say end of the season, you've got LeVert back, you've got Warren back. What is that Pacers rotation looking like?
LeVert and Warren back?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm starting five will be their best five players, which is Brogdon, LeVert, Warren, and the two centers, Sabonis and Turner. I think now that Sabonis and Turner are fitting better together this year with an energized Turner, that group's going to be awesome. Brogdon's been really good too. The bench is a little more dicey, right? We already talked about Aaron Holiday struggling, and they kind of want to play Goga Bitadze, their second-year center they drafted last year, but they have two good centers above him, so I don't know how often they can even get him on the floor, and maybe they'll go smaller once they have their fully healthy team. So I think the starters are obvious. I think what they'll do is go with McConnell and Aaron Holiday and Justin Holiday and McDermott for their second unit. But I would understand if Goga got maybe 5 minutes in there. And something I said earlier, Aaron Holiday is really struggling. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point they put Edmund Sumner in the rotation over Aaron Holiday. I don't know that that's going to happen, but I've been a big Sumner fan his whole career, and Aaron Holiday's been struggling. So that's a possibility, but I'd imagine it's the starters I named in those four guys. But Bjorkgren does mix it up every once in a while and expands his rotation every so often, just because he's, something he said before the season is he doesn't want to get to the playoffs and then roll out a lineup and they just never play together and they're just really stuck. So he kind of mixes and matches. So maybe it'll be a little different than that, but that's what I'm envisioning when everyone's healthy. Now, and Jeremy Lamb, holy moly.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, take Aaron Holiday out of there completely and put Lamb in his spot. But they got a lot of guards that can play. So,
how has Lamb been doing off of the ACL tear?
Very good, incredibly good, actually. I'm stunned how good he's playing coming off of an ACL tear just a few months ago. I'll pull up his stats really quick. He only had one dud game since returning. He's averaging 14 points a game on less than 10 shots. Already playing back-to-back, started twice. He looks great. It's really remarkable. That's why I forgot about him. He's only played 6 games. Yeah, Aaron Holiday will not be on the rotation if they're fully healthy.
Gotcha. Absolutely. Well, looking at that team, that's a pretty solid team, but do you see any other needs for this Pacers team? Could you see them making any moves at the trade deadline? Maybe trying to pick someone up?
They could always use a 4. They don't they've been really struggling. I mean, every team struggles with Kawhi Leonard, Paul George types, but you watch the Celtics a lot, right? Tatum killed the Pacers both times.
Absolutely.
Jaylen Brown did really well. And like I just said, Paul George and Kawhi did well, and Luka did really well. I'm trying to think of some other guys who, played. Oh, Harrison Barnes, a random one. Harrison Barnes had a really nice game against the Pacers.
Yeah.
So I mentioned those guys, and I consider all those guys to be forward-sized guys who are also powerful in the way they play. Like Gordon Hayward is really good too, and he's forward-sized, but he's not necessarily so powerful, right? He takes a lot of pull-ups and fadeaways in the mid-range. He's a little more finesse. He didn't kill them as much, but those powerful forwards, they don't have an answer for because they're quick enough to beat Sabonis and Turner off the dribble, and then Justin Holiday is kind of skinny, so he can't really handle them. Like Justin Holiday did a pretty good job on Hayward, but he can't handle those more powerful guys. So, maybe a stocky 4 could really help them. I don't know how many minutes they even have available to give a guy like that, but that could help. And then some fans want this. I don't, but come playoff time, if there's foul trouble, Goga Bitadze will be getting some backup center minutes, and a lot of people don't think he's ready for that in a playoff setting and would maybe consider that the team should chase a veteran backup 5. I don't think that's necessarily an issue. Jakar Sampson filled in the playoffs last year just fine. So maybe on that, but I'm going to go with no. So I would say just a stocky 4, but again, it's going to be really hard for them to even play a guy like that. So it's kind of tough because, like you said, they have so many B guys that, getting a C guy who fits a need, he won't play, but you can't get an A guy without giving up some of your B guys. So they're kind of in an awkward spot right now where, I think they're kind of just going to run it with this roster in the playoffs and see what their needs are and then maybe assess next year.
And what's the ceiling for this roster, this Pacer team?
Depends what seed they can get. I think they can get to the second round. I don't think they're good enough to beat any of Brooklyn or Boston, or maybe Boston, but Brooklyn and Milwaukee for sure in a playoff series. So Probably Boston and Philly as well. That's tough. So if they can avoid one of those teams in the first round, I think they can definitely get to the second round, but I don't think they can make the conference finals. So I'd say a second round ceiling right now. And if they do another terrible playoff performance like the last 2 years, they'll probably have to make some big roster changes. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll get to that when we get to that. Now let's look real quickly before I get to our 60-second speed round brought to you by Endeavor Communications.
Ooh.
Just 10 fun questions for you. Real quickly, though, I want to go around the rest of the NBA. Are you able to watch any other teams outside of the Pacers? Do you have a favorite?
I try to watch lots of other teams. I don't think I've not caught any. A few teams I've only caught twice this year. I don't think I have not caught anyone. Anyway, I really like watching Denver. Jokic is just a hoot. And Murray's struggled this year, but he's always fun too. The Jazz are on like a 1,000,000 game win streak right now. They've been a blast to watch. So those are two teams that I've caught a fair amount recently. The Rockets since the trade. I've tried to keep up with Depot, and John Wall's my favorite player ever. Surprise! So I watched a lot of Rockets this year, and that's really I think the teams I've watched the most heavily. Sans Pacers, and the East hasn't been as wide ranging. Unfortunately, they play a lot at the Pacers at the same time, right? Just time zones, and that's how it works. I caught a lot of the Hawks because you said earlier a lot of people were ranking the Pacers low in the East before the season started, and a lot of that was because the Hawks got better and people are putting the Hawks above them. So I watched a lot of Hawks. They're good. They're legit. So that's been fun. But yeah, I think my favorite non-Pacers team to watch this year has been the Nuggets, even though they haven't been as good as they had last year.
Well, that's another team like the Pacers who need a forward to definitely guard some of those premier players that the Pacers and Nuggets just don't quite have.
Definitely, yeah. Jeremy Grant was big for them, and I get why Jeremy Grant left, and I get they tried really hard to keep him, but yeah, Paul Millsap's slow now, and JaMychal Green can only do so much. So I agree with you. Yeah, it's gonna be tough for the Nuggets and the Jazz. The Jazz are so interesting because they've got the defenders, but they're just like I can't explain it.
That was my 3 seed coming out of this
Really?
for the West. Oh yeah,
I don't remember where did I have them exactly. I can look it up because I actually typed my rankings down for once. I usually don't do that.
I did too.
I can actually reference where I had to. I had the Jazz 6th. I can't believe I put them behind the Blazers. That was not smart of me. But
I had the Warriors like 4 or 5. I think. So.
Yes. So, the Jazz have definitely been better than I thought, and they have a lot of I can't explain. I always worry about them in the playoffs, but they look amazing right now.
So before I asked about the MVP of the league, I want to ask who is the Pacers MVP?
Jeez, it's Brogdon or Sabonis, and I will always say Brogdon, mostly because like my core beliefs of basketball require that I think that a lead ball handler being good is like the most important thing for teams to be awesome. And while Sabonis has the ball all the time, Brogdon's a lead ball handler and initiates a lot of offense. So I think Brogdon's been the MVP, but it's him or Sabonis, and they're so close that either answer is fine.
Absolutely. And then the MVP of the league so far this season, I know a lot of teams sitting around 500 at this point, like a lot of teams, more than usual due to all the quarantines and everything COVID related. But who is the MVP of the league? The Sixers, Lakers, both doing well. Jazz, you mentioned. Who is it?
Before the season, I picked Embiid as my second place MVP guy. So I want to say him right now because he's been awesome. But I think the 3 right now are Embiid, Jokic, and LeBron are the top 3 in some order.
Yeah.
I could hear any of them. Honestly, the Nuggets have the record there last, but I think individually Jokic has been the best of those 3 guys. Giannis has been really good, but worse than in seasons past, and he's not going to win because of voter fatigue, right? Like, that's just not going to happen. And Luka, who was a very popular preseason pick, the Mavs have been pretty bad. So
yes, they have.
Hard to give him the nod there too. So I think I would pick Embiid right now. But I think it's one of those 3 guys, LeBron, Jokic, Embiid. I don't know which one I think will end up winning it, but right now I think it's Joel Embiid.
I like it. All right, now to
who's yours?
My MVP so far? Oh gosh, no one's asked me that. I'd probably go with LeBron at this point.
Yeah, that's a great pick. Yeah, he's been amazing.
All right, now for our 60-second speed round brought to you by Endeavor Communications, who sponsors this podcast. Make sure to check them out. But Tony, we've got 60 seconds. You got 10 questions. Try and get through as many as you can. I will start the timer. Hey, they're just fun questions. We're going to have a good time. Let's do this. Ready?
Okay. Yes.
What's your favorite movie?
Oh my gosh. Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler. All right. If you were given $1 million, what would be your first purchase?
Better computer.
Your favorite pro sports team outside of the Pacers?
The Philadelphia Phillies.
Okay. Favorite restaurant favorite restaurant.
I really like the Eagle in downtown Indy, but I think my favorite restaurant's going to be Pearl Street Pizzeria.
Ooh, okay. Favorite thing to do in your free time? You're at 30 seconds.
Play Rocket League. It's a video game. I don't know how many of your listeners will know what that is.
Fair. If you could pick one superpower, what would it be?
Wow. Teleportation.
I liked it. Okay. Best piece of a brownie, the middle, the edge, or the corner?
Oh, middle. 100%.
I completely agree. If you weren't doing what you're doing right now, how would you be making a living?
I have a full-time job that isn't basketball, so I would say data analysis. But if that counts as, oh no, I forgot I only had 60 seconds. Never mind. I won't finish the answer. So I'll just say that.
I liked it, Tony.
Was that all 10? Was that all 10 questions?
Oh, we only did 8, Tony.
What? I went more than 6 seconds on some of those? That's crazy. What were the last 2 questions? I maybe won't answer them, but I want to know what they were.
Favorite university outside of IU, obviously, that's where you went.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Right. Good question. I liked Purdue as a kid, which is ironic, but I'm not gonna.
That is.
You know, my parents went to Ball State, so let's that's where you go. Let's go with Ball State.
Sure. I appreciate it. Yeah, and your favorite sport outside of basketball?
Oh, baseball, definitely. Easy.
Okay, there it is. Tony East,
that's
everybody.
Cool. That was stressful. It should have been stressful.
I'm glad. We try to keep our guests on their toes. So, Tony, thank you so much for joining me today on Small Town Sports Talk.
I had a great time. Looking forward to hopefully hearing all the people that enjoyed this and listened. Thank you, Andrew.
Sure thing. That will do it for our Indiana Pacers podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to check out all of our podcasts wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that be Apple Music or Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. I'm Andrew Willett. Next week, we'll get Jonah Freeman in there. And then this week, Tony East for the Indiana Pacers. That's ST Squared.